The small repair dock at the edge of Sector 7 hummed with the usual sounds of maintenance work. Ji-won crouched under the belly of a cargo hauler, his tools scattered around him like metal flowers. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he worked, on the stubborn fuel line that had been giving him trouble all morning. He was just a simple mechanic. Nothing special about him except maybe his ability to fix things that others gave up on. The space station was quiet today, with only 2 ships, docked for repairs. Ji-won preferred it this way. Less noise meant he could think better, and thinking was half the job when dealing with broken machinery. The deep rumble of approaching engines made him pause. That sound was different. Not the rough growl of human ships, or the high whine of trader vessels. This was smooth, almost musical. Ji-won rolled out from under the cargo hauler, and wiped his hands on his already dirty coveralls. Through the transparent aluminum windows of the dock, he saw something that made him stop breathing. For a moment, a ship unlike anything he had ever seen was gliding toward his station. It looked like it was made of liquid silver and starlight, with curves that seemed to flow rather than be built. The vessel was beautiful in a way that human engineering never quite achieved. The ship settled onto the docking platform with barely a whisper. Ji-won had never heard anything land so quietly. Steam hissed from vents along its hull, and lights pulsed in patterns he did not recognize. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a section of the ship's side simply dissolved away, forming a perfect doorway. 3 figures stepped out, and Ji-won felt his mouth go dry. They were clearly female in shape, but that was where any similarity to human women ended. Their skin had a blue tint that caught the station's lights like polished crystal. Their hair fell in silver waves past their shoulders, moving as if it were alive. They were tall, taller than most humans, and they moved with a grace that made Ji-won think of dancers. The one in front wore what looked like a uniform, but it was made of material that shifted colors as she walked. The other 2 flanked her, their own clothing just as strange and beautiful. All 3 had weapons at their sides, though Ji-won could not tell what kind they were. They approached his work area with careful steps. The leader's eyes were large and completely black, no white visible at all. When she looked at Ji-won, he felt like she was seeing right through him. "You are the mechanic." Her voice was like music, but there was doubt in it. The way she said mechanic made it sound like she was not sure such a primitive creature could help. Her Ji-won stood up slowly, suddenly aware of how dirty he was compared to these perfect beings. "That's me," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "What's the problem?" The leader tilted her head, studying him. "Our vessel has suffered critical system failure. The quantum drive matrix has collapsed, and the power distribution network is unstable. 3 repair stations have declared our ship beyond their capabilities to fix." Ji-won understood maybe half of what she said, but he nodded anyway. "I see. And you are?" "I am Captain Hannah, of the Celestial Fleet, 3rd Division." She gestured to the woman on her left, who had tools hanging from her belt. "This is Mina, my chief engineer." Then to the right, "And Yuna, our navigation specialist." All 3 names sounded strange to Ji-won's ears, but he filed them away. "Nice to meet you. I'm Ji-won." He paused, then added, "Just Ji-won." Captain Hannah looked around his simple workshop, taking in the basic tools. The spare parts scattered on workbenches, the oil stains on the floor. Her expression suggested she was having second thoughts. "Perhaps we should try the main shipyard at Centauri Station," Mina whispered to her captain in their musical language. Ji-won did not understand the words, but he caught the meaning from her tone. "Let me take a look first," Ji-won said quickly. "No charge for the inspection." Captain Hannah hesitated, then nodded once. "Very well, but do not damage anything. This vessel is worth more than your entire station." Ji-won gathered his basic diagnostic tools and followed the 3 aliens to their ship. Up close, the vessel was even more impressive. The hull seemed to absorb light in some places and reflect it in others. Strange symbols glowed along its surface. pulsing in rhythms that almost seemed like a heartbeat. The interior was like walking into a dream. Everything curved and flowed together. There were no hard edges, no visible bolts or welds. The walls themselves seemed to be alive, with streams of light running through them like veins. The air smelled of ozone and something sweet that Ji-won could not identify. Mina led him to what had to be the engine room, though it looked nothing like any engine Ji-won had ever seen. Instead of mechanical parts, there were floating crystals that spun slowly in the air, connected by beams of colored light. At the center was a sphere of pure white energy that flickered weakly. The quantum matrix, Mina explained, pointing at the sphere. It should burn like a small star. Instead, it dies. Gi-won stared at the impossible technology, feeling very small and very human. But as he watched, he began to notice patterns, energy flows that reminded him of electrical circuits, heat signatures that looked familiar. Maybe alien technology was not so different from human machinery after all. Gi-won spent the first hour just looking. He crawled around the alien engine room on his hands and knees, poking his head into spaces that the three women probably thought were too small for anyone to fit. His basic flashlight seemed pitiful compared to their glowing technology, but it showed him things their fancy displays missed. The floating crystals hummed softly above his head. Mina watched him with growing confusion as he pulled out a simple magnetic detector, a tool so basic that human children used them in school projects. When he waved it near the crystals, it beeped frantically. "Your crystals are fighting each other," Ji-won said, standing up and wiping dust from his knees. "The magnetic fields are all wrong." "Impossible," Mina replied quickly. "The quantum alignment is perfect. Our computers verified it 3 times. Gi-won shrugged. "Computers can be wrong, especially when they are programmed to expect perfection." He tapped one of the crystals with his finger, making it wobble slightly. All 3 aliens gasped, as if he had slapped their child. "Do not touch the quantum matrices." Captain Hannah stepped forward, her hand moving to her weapon. "They are not quantum anything right now," Ji-won said calmly. "They are just expensive rocks floating in the wrong places." He pulled out a piece of paper and started drawing a simple diagram. "See, your ship thinks this crystal goes here, but the magnetic signature says it belongs over there." For the next 2 hours, he worked while they watched. Every tool he used made them more nervous. When he brought out his welding torch, Yuna actually moved toward the exit. When he started drilling holes in their perfect walls, Mina made small, crying sounds. "Your methods are so, ... crude," Captain Hannah said, watching him run thick copper wire through the holes he had made. "Crude that works is better than perfect that does not," Ji-won replied, stripping the wire with his teeth since he could not find his wire cutters. By the end of the first day, he had bypassed their main power system entirely. Instead of their crystal networks, power now flowed through simple human cables. Instead of their quantum processors, basic circuit boards controlled the energy flow. The 3 aliens looked like they were watching someone paint over a masterpiece with house paint. "This cannot possibly function," Mina whispered, staring at the mess of wires and simple components now attached to their beautiful ship. "Want to bet?" Ji-won asked, reaching for the main power switch. "Wait." All 3 aliens spoke at once. "What if it explodes?" Yuna asked. "What if it works?" Ji-won countered, and flipped the switch. The engine room filled with a low humming sound. The dying white sphere at the center suddenly blazed to life, brighter than before. The floating crystals began to spin faster, their colors more vivid. Throughout the ship, systems that had been dark for days started glowing. The 3 aliens stared in complete silence. Then Mina pulled out a device that looked like a crystal tablet and began reading numbers that scrolled across its surface. "Power output is 112% of normal," she said in a voice barely above a whisper. "Quantum stability is perfect," Yuna added, checking her own device. Engine efficiency is. This reading must be wrong. Captain Hannah shook her head. It says we could reach our homeworld in half the usual time. Juan smiled and started packing up his tools. Told you it would work. The second day was even more surprising for the aliens. G1 worked on their navigation system, replacing their complex star charts with simple math equations written on pieces of paper that he taped to their control panels. He fixed their life support by connecting it to a modified air freshener from his own workshop. When their food processor broke down, he rebuilt it using parts from a human coffee machine. I do not understand, Mina said, watching him solder a connection with a tool that was probably older than she was. How do you know which components will work together? Your technology and ours, developed on different worlds, in different ways. Metal is metal, Jiwan explained, holding up a piece of copper wire. Electricity is electricity. Magnetic fields work the same everywhere. Your people think in terms of perfect systems. Humans think in terms of making things work with whatever we have. But surely you must study our technical manuals, learn our procedures, Captain Hannah insisted. Never seen a manual that fixed anything by itself, Jiwan replied. Sometimes the best way to understand something is to break it down to its basic parts. Your quantum matrix is just a fancy battery. Your crystal processors are just complicated switches. Once you stop being impressed by how pretty they look, you can figure out what they actually do. On the third day, he made their weapons systems more accurate by adding simple human targeting computers. He improved their sensors by connecting them to basic radio equipment. Every change he made seemed to violate everything the aliens thought. They knew about technology, but every change made their ship better. By the end of the third day, their impossible ship was running better than the day it was built. The three aliens stood in their engine room, staring at the mix of beautiful alien technology and crude human fixes, completely speechless. Sometimes, Jiwan said, washing his hands in their fancy cleaning station, the best solution is not the most complicated one. The fourth day started differently. Instead of rushing to check their ship's systems, Captain Hannah approached Jiwan's workshop with something in her hands. It was a container made of the same flowing material as their ship, filled with what looked like small, glowing fruits. We brought food, she said, setting the container on his workbench next to his tools. From our world, Jiwan looked up from the engine part he was cleaning. That's kind of you. Thank you. He reached into his lunch bag and pulled out a simple metal container. I have food too. Want to share? The three aliens exchanged glances. Sharing meals was apparently not something they did with other species often, but curiosity won over caution, and they gathered around his small table. G1 opened his container to reveal rice, some vegetables, and strips of seasoned meat. The smell made the aliens lean back slightly, their noses wrinkling. It smells strong, Yuna said politely. Human food usually does, Jiwan replied with a smile. We like flavor. He picked up one of their glowing fruits and examined it. These look beautiful. What do they taste like? Try one, Mina encouraged. The fruit was sweet beyond anything Jiwan had ever tasted, but also had flavors he could not identify. It was like eating sunlight mixed with music. Incredible, he said honestly. Nothing on earth tastes like this. Captain Hannah tried a small piece of his seasoned meat, and her eyes went wide. So many different tastes at once, she said, reaching for water. How do you eat such complex flavors? Practice, Jiwan laughed. We grow up with it, just like you. Probably grew up with perfect technology that never breaks down. Actually, that is exactly right, Mina said, warming to the conversation. On our world, machines are designed to last for centuries without maintenance. When something stops working, we replace it entirely. Must be nice, Jiwan said, taking another bite of the alien fruit. Human technology breaks down all the time. We have to learn to fix everything, or we would have nothing. Is that why humans are so good at improvising? Yuna asked. She seemed genuinely curious. Maybe. When your speeder breaks down in the middle of nowhere, you learn to fix it with whatever you can find. When your heating system fails in winter, you figure out how to stay warm using spare parts and creativity. We have to be adaptable, because nothing ever goes according to plan. Captain Hannah leaned forward. Tell us about your world. What is it like to live with such unreliable technology? Jiwan thought for a moment. Frustrating sometimes, but also exciting. Every problem is a puzzle to solve. Every broken machine is a chance to make it work better than before. He gestured toward their ship. Your technology is perfect when it works, but helpless when it breaks. Human technology is messy and crude, but it keeps working even when half the parts are missing. On our world, there is great honor in creating perfect solutions, Mina said. Engineers spend years designing systems that never fail. And when they do fail, anyway, Jiwan asked. Then we call it impossible to fix and build a new one, she admitted. Wasteful, Jiwan said, not unkindly. But I understand the thinking. If you have the resources to always build new, why learn to fix old? Because, Yuna said slowly, as if working out the idea as she spoke. Learning to fix things teaches you how they really work. Exactly. Jiwan finished the alien fruit and found himself wishing he had more. When I take apart a broken engine, I learn things about it that no manual ever taught me. I see where the design is strong and where it is weak. I understand not just how it is supposed to work, but how it actually works in the real world. The conversation continued as they ate. The aliens asked about human culture, about Earth, about how humans learn to work with their hands instead of just their minds. Jiwan asked about their world, their technology, their way of life. Your species fascinates us, Captain Hannah said eventually. We have met many intelligent races, but none quite like humans. Most advanced species become more specialized as they develop. They focus on perfection in narrow areas, but humans seem to become more adaptable. Maybe because we never had a choice, G1 suggested. Earth is not an easy world. The weather changes, resources run out, disasters happen. We had to learn to survive by being flexible. And now that flexibility helps you solve problems that our specialized knowledge cannot, Mina added thoughtfully. Different approaches, that's all, G1 said. Your way creates amazing things. My way keeps them running when the amazing stops working. As the day went on, the barriers between them continued to fall. The aliens helped him organize his tools, learning the names and purposes of each one. G1 showed them how to use basic diagnostic equipment, explaining that sometimes the simplest tests revealed the most important information. You do not think like other species, Yuna observed, watching him test a circuit with nothing but a small light bulb and some wire. Good thing too, G1 replied, or your ship would still be broken. By evening, they were laughing together over shared stories of technical disasters and unexpected solutions. The three perfect aliens and the rough human mechanic had found common ground in their shared love of making things work. Word traveled fast through the space lanes. Within 3 days of the alien women's departure, Giwan's quiet repair dock was no longer quiet. Ships of every size and shape crowded around the small station, waiting their turn like patients outside a doctor's office. The first to arrive was a crystalline trader named Vec. His species looked like living glass sculptures, beautiful but fragile. His ship was elegant and delicate, with transparent walls that showed its inner workings like a see-through watch. My navigation system has failed, Vec explained in his tinkling voice. The crystal matrices that control our star charts have developed fractures. 3 crystalline repair specialists say the damage cannot be reversed. G1 examined the navigation room, where broken crystals hung in the air like shattered windows. The patterns of cracks looked random at first, but as he studied them, he began to see a design. These crystals are not broken, he told Vec, after 2 hours of careful examination. They are trying to grow. Vec's glass-like face showed confusion. Living crystal. I have seen it before in some earth minerals. When they get enough energy, they try to expand their structure. G1 pulled out a simple tool that looked like a tuning fork. Your power system is feeding them too much energy in the wrong frequencies. He spent the next day rewiring the navigation system using basic human fiber optic cables. Instead of forcing the crystals to stay in their original shape, he let them grow into new patterns, and then taught the ship's computer to read the new configurations. When Vec tested the system, his transparent eyes went wide. The accuracy is beyond anything we have achieved before, he whispered. How did you know? Sometimes the problem is not that something is broken, Jiwan explained. Sometimes the problem is that it is trying to become something better, and we are stopping it. The next ship belonged to a voidwalker named Kess. Her species lived in the cold darkness between stars, and her ship reflected that heritage. It was black as space itself, with no lights visible from outside. Inside, everything was designed for beings who saw in spectrums humans could not imagine. Life support failure, Kess explained, her voice like wind through empty corridors. The atmospheric processors have stopped converting raw materials into breathable air. Our technicians say the biological components have died and cannot be replaced. Jiwan put on a breathing mask and entered the life support section. What he found looked more like a garden than a machine. Tubes and chambers held what appeared to be living tissue, all of it now gray and still. Biological technology, he murmured, taking readings with his simple instruments. Fascinating. The problem was not that the biological components had died. They had gone into a dormant state because the ship's environment was too clean. On their home world, the Voidwalkers lived with beneficial bacteria and fungi that helped process their air in the sterile environment of space travel. Those helpful organisms had died off. Jiwan solved the problem by connecting the life support to modified air, scrubbers from Earth. The scrubbers did not kill all bacteria like the alien filters did. Instead, they maintained a balance of helpful organisms that the biological processors needed to function. Within hours, the gray tissue began to show color again. The ship's air became fresher and more breathable than it had been in months. Your solution is so simple, Kess marveled. Our best scientists never considered that sterile might be too clean. Sometimes the best environment is not the most controlled one, Jiwan replied. A solar wing named Bright arrived next, his ship gleaming like polished gold and radiating heat even when powered down. His species drew energy directly from stars, and their technology reflected that relationship with pure energy. Power core instability, Bright explained, his voice crackling like fire. The energy matrix fluctuates wildly. We fear it will explode and destroy half the station. Jiwan studied the power core, which looked like a miniature sun contained in a sphere of golden metal. Energy readings showed it was indeed unstable, building to dangerous levels and then dropping suddenly. It is like a heart with irregular rhythm, he observed. The energy flows are not synchronized. The solution was surprisingly simple. Using basic magnetic field generators from human industrial equipment, Jiwan created a steady rhythm that the power core could follow, like a pacemaker. For an engine, the magnetic pulses gave the energy matrix something stable to synchronize with. Impossible, Bright said when his ship's power readings showed perfect stability. How did simple magnetic fields solve what our energy specialists could not? Sometimes complex problems need simple solutions, Jiwan answered. By the end of the week, 13 different ships had been repaired, using methods their own engineers had never considered. Each success brought more visitors. Jiwan worked 18-hour days, solving problems that had been declared impossible. Captain Hannah and her crew had remained at the station, watching everything. They took detailed notes, recorded conversations, and observed each repair with growing amazement. You have started something significant here, Captain Hannah told Jiwan one evening, as they watched the sunset through the station's main viewport. "I just fix things," Jiwon replied, tired but satisfied. "You fix more than machines," Mina added. "You fix the way people think about problems. Each species you have helped will remember this," Yuna said. "They will tell others. The word will spread throughout the galaxy that there is a human who can solve the impossible." Jiwon looked out at the growing collection of alien ships surrounding his small station and wondered what he had gotten himself into. The morning of the 10th day brought an unusual sight. Captain Hannah and her crew stood in their dress uniforms outside Jiwon's workshop, looking more formal than he had ever seen them. Their ship gleamed behind them, fully repaired and running better than ever. "We must speak with you," Captain Hannah announced. Her voice carried a weight that made Jiwon set down his tools and give her his full attention. "Sounds serious," he said, wiping his hands on a clean rag. "What's on your mind?" "We have not been entirely honest with you," Mina said, stepping forward. Her usual friendly manner was replaced by something more official. "Our presence here was not accidental." Jiwon felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. "Oh, we are not simple travelers," Yuna explained. "We are scouts for the Galactic Engineering Consortium. Our mission was to evaluate your capabilities." "You were testing me," Jiwon said. It was not a question. "Yes," Captain Hannah replied without hesitation. "But not in the way you might think. We came here because rumors had reached the consortium about a human mechanic who could fix anything. Most of us believed the stories were exaggerated." Jiwon looked at the three women who had become his friends over the past week. "And now?" "Now we know the rumors were not wild enough," Mina said with a smile. "What you have accomplished here goes far beyond simple repair work." Captain Hannah pulled out a device that looked like a crystal tablet. "The Galactic Engineering Consortium faces a crisis. 17 star systems are experiencing infrastructure failures that our best engineers cannot solve. Power grids are collapsing, transportation networks are breaking down, and life support systems are failing on dozens of worlds." "Sounds serious," Jiwon said carefully. "But what does that have to do with me?" "Everything," Yuna replied. "Traditional engineering methods have failed. Each species tries to solve problems using only their own technology and thinking. But you have shown us something different." Mina activated the tablet, and images appeared in the air above it. Star charts, technical diagrams, and problem reports scrolled past faster than Jiwon could read them. "These failures all have one thing in common," she explained. "They require solutions that cross the boundaries between different technologies, different ways of thinking. No single species has been able to find answers because each species only knows their own methods. But humans," Captain Hannah said, "humans think differently. You do not see technology as perfect systems that must work exactly as designed. You see them as tools that can be modified, combined, and adapted to solve new problems." Jiwon stared at the flowing images of broken machinery and failing systems. "You want me to fix all of that?" "We want to offer you a partnership," Yuna said, pulling out another crystal device. "The first human-alien engineering firm in galactic history. Your practical approach combined with our resources and knowledge." The second device projected a document written in multiple languages. Human English was at the top, followed by scripts and symbols that Jiwon did not recognize. "A business partnership?" he asked, scanning the readable parts of the contract. "More than that," Captain Hannah explained. "A chance to establish human engineering methods throughout the galaxy. To teach other species that there is value in adaptability, in working with whatever materials you have, in finding simple solutions to complex problems." Jiwon read through the contract carefully. The terms were generous, almost too generous. Resources, funding, access to technologies from dozens of different worlds, and the authority to solve problems using whatever methods he thought best. "This seems too good to be true," he said finally. "What's the catch?" "The catch," Mina said seriously, is that you would be responsible for preventing the collapse of civilizations. The systems that are failing support billions of lives. If we cannot find solutions soon, entire worlds may become uninhabitable. No pressure, Jiwan muttered. We have observed you for 10 days, Captain Hannah said. We have watched you solve 13 impossible problems using nothing but creativity and determination. We have seen you teach other species new ways to think about their own technology. If anyone can prevent this crisis, it is you. Jiwan looked around his simple workshop, at the basic tools and spare parts that had become his life. Then he looked at the alien ships still crowded around his station, each one representing a problem solved by thinking differently. I would not be working alone, he asked. You would have teams of engineers from every species in the consortium, Yuna assured him. But you would lead them. Your methods, your approach, your solutions. And if I mess up, then we will face the same failures we are facing now, Captain Hannah replied honestly. But at least, we will have tried something new. Jiwan picked up the crystal tablet with the contract and scrolled through it one more time. Financial security, resources beyond his dreams, and the chance to work on problems that mattered on a galactic scale. It was everything he had never known he wanted. All right, he said finally, reaching for a simple pen from his workbench. But I do things my way. We would not have it any other. Captain Hannah smiled as Jiwan signed his name to the contract. He realized that sometimes the greatest rewards came not from seeking them, but from simply doing what you do best. He had fixed their ship, and in return, they were offering him the stars. The galaxy, it seemed, needed a mechanic who thought like a human.